Hello and welcome to Hard Count Sports. This is episode 10 of the podcast. We took a few weeks break there, just a 1 week break, and we're back for another episode. It's great that you can join us. Hopefully you haven't missed us too much. There's a lot to cover. There's a lot that's been going on these past few days. Training camp started up. Aaron Rodgers is back. We'll go into that in depth. So much to cover though. Zach, how are you keeping?
I'm doing very well, Ross. Good to see you. It's been a wee while since we've been talking, so I'm glad to be back. I'm glad to be back on the podcast as well.
It's great to have you.
Yeah, definitely. There's plenty of juicy content to talk about this afternoon, especially with the news. A lot of news stories broke in the past week. And here's one for you, Ross. After this week, there's no weeks without NFL football until after the Super Bowl. How does that sound?
That's it. Well, that's what I needed to hear, actually, Zach, because, it's been a long, long summer.
It has.
And just a long period of time. Actually, I'm saying that, but I'm thinking back, I feel like this has actually not been too bad. In previous years, have felt a wee bit longer. I think there's been so much that's been keeping us interested in the sport over these past few months that have kept us, in tune with everything.
NFL never stops. That's the thing. Football never stops.
Free agencies kicking off. It was kicking off back there in April, May. The draft, obviously, we've got all that stuff, and we've covered it. We've covered it all, but the season's come back, and it's just right around the corner.
Definitely.
I'm sure you're excited about it. I'm sure all you listeners are probably excited about it too. We'll have a lot to discuss and a lot to talk about when things kick off in September, and even now coming into August, pre-season starting up. There's a lot to talk about there. There's going to be a lot of maybe second, third string guys who are getting opportunities, and maybe ones who might be breaking into first teams.
Yes, exactly. And that's the beauty of it. Your job is never safe. There's always someone who's coming up the ranks and could take over your spot. So, the 53-man rosters will be set after preseason. That's one for us to get through as well. But yes, today's episode is going to be a good one. We've got an interview with Todd Rosenberg, NFL photographer. So that'll be really interesting to hear that side of the business. And then also we continue on with our division breakdown with the NFC and AFC East. But before we go any further, Ross, let's dive into the news.
Let's do it. I'll let you kick things off, Zach.
Okay.
How's that sound?
That sounds good to me, Ross. And I don't think we can go any further without talking about Mr. Aaron Rodgers. Yes.
Why?
After all the suspense he put us through over the past few months, draft day with Adam Schefter releasing the news that he's unhappy, Aaron Rodgers is back in Green Bay. How does that sound, Packers fans? I'm sure you are very happy about that. Yes.
Sure, were your brothers pleased?
So, yeah, my brother was, I'm no joke, was crying with relief. It came up on his Bleacher Report notification, and he did shed a few tears. What do you think the Vikings and Bears fans' response to this one was, Ross?
Well, I think they're going to be disappointed, of course. But we'll actually have to sit and wait and see, how does Aaron play this year? Is he coming back to prove himself? Does he? He doesn't need to prove himself, but is he coming back to play with vengeance? I think is the question. Yeah. Or is he going to maybe take it a wee bit more relaxed? Is he now coming into that stage of his career where he's thinking about retirement anyway? I do feel like this is probably one of his last, if not his last season in the NFL. And I think that, well, there's a lot of people thinking that if he wasn't coming back to Green Bay, he might be jumping ship. But honestly, I was thinking that's him said and done. I think he was thinking about retirement. Now, in terms of Vikings and Bears and Lions fans as well,
it's not great news.
I think it's a lifeline because I think they're realizing that time's coming to an end in Green Bay. And just like all, now they wouldn't go as far to say they're a dynasty, but they weren't far away from it at points. They proved, they showed that they had the potential to become something great. And I think that they will be thinking to themselves, those fans will be thinking that time's of the essence here. And they're just furthering their own franchises at this point. It's all about getting Fields and Goff and Kirk Cousins up to those standards to maybe go ahead and win the division in coming years.
Well, this is the thing, you say that, about Aaron Rodgers. One of the things that was the deal that got him back, he signed a restructured contract extension, and that brings him back to Green Bay for at least one more year. And after the end of next year, he has a real decision in where he plays and what he does with his future. So if he wants to go somewhere else and be traded and play somewhere else, he has that option. If he wants to extend with Green Bay, he can do that too. And if he wants to retire, that option's there as well. That's really interesting to me. I think we are looking at a last dance situation in Green Bay this year. You also have Devontae Adams. He says, I'm not going to take a pay cut. I'm one of the best wide receivers in the league. Why would
He's jumping on that bandwagon, yeah.
So I think this was really his last year as well. But it's interesting to me, you saw Aaron Rodgers. He's back. Bakhtiari bought him a golf buggy and he's been driving around Green Bay. So I really want to know, what was it that changed? Obviously, you see Randall Cobb is back in Green Bay. Another one for Packers fans. I'm sure whenever they heard that, they were delighted too. A fan favorite and an absolute stud in Green Bay. And a really close friend of Aaron Rodgers. That coming back, I do think, Aaron Rodgers was definitely, a part of the deal. One of the reasons why Aaron Rodgers, he said, I'm coming back and I have a list of requests. I want you to go and get my guy, Randall Cobb. And did you watch his press conference as well? His first press conference with the Packers?
Yeah.
What was your thoughts on it, Ross?
Oh, I heard him say it. I love this team. I love the org. And he stopped right there.
Yeah.
He was about to say organization. And he was so obvious in the fact that he changed it to, the fans.
And the team,
Yeah. Just crazy that he let that slip. And I think that was intentional, actually, in my opinion, because looking back
tells you everything.
It does. Looking back on his previous press conferences, he's had quite good discipline. He's always known what to say and when to say it. And I think this was an intentional slip by Aaron, just to show the public that everything isn't back to normal here. He is still annoyed at the Green Bay organization and the management there and the ownership. And I think that, as I said, it's a lifeline for him here.
Yeah.
I think I think he'll maybe get through this season, but I think that's it.
I think as well, if you watch the press conference, you'll have seen it. But for those who haven't, in the press conference, he goes on and talks about it was amazing. He basically called out his bosses live on TV and said all the things that they have done in the past, which he disagreed with. He talked about all of the veteran players, the legends in Green Bay, who he believes have been mistreated in their contract, maybe underestimated their level of talent and their skill. And he had literally had a piece of paper and he listed off about a dozen names of players in Green Bay who he felt that the Packers had mistreated. Julius Peppers, for example, was on that list. Jordy Nelson, too. There's so many others.
Was Randall Cobb's name on it?
Yeah, and Charles Woodson, too, And for me, I think Aaron Rodgers was basically, he was calling out Green Bay. But he's letting Green Bay know, yes, I'm back, but I'm still upset with you. I'm still not 100% happy with you. But he did come out and say, I am all in on this team. He's all in for this year.
Yeah, he's playing for the guy beside him. He's not playing for the ownership, the organization.
No.
He's playing for the man beside him. And talking about men who maybe aren't as healthy as they should be right now, let's move over to Indianapolis.
Oh, no.
Carson Wentz has found himself in a bit of a predicament here, coming into a new setting with a familiar head coach, Frank Reich. He was kind of bound for a wee bit more success this season. People were setting him up to be maybe the guy who took the reins and maybe even took the Colts to the playoffs, possibly a Super Bowl.
Yes.
But never mind all that. He's got something bigger on his plate now. He's possibly set to miss 5 to 12 weeks.
Yeah.
And is set to undergo foot surgery after injuring his foot in practice. This procedure could take, as I said, him out for 12 weeks, which could see him missing about 7 weeks of the regular season. So the Colts are going to need a backup plan in place here. Jacob Eason has been floated around. And, it's unlucky for Wentz, I have to admit, because it's the same situation in Philadelphia. He was doing so well there and had a major setback. Literally just as they were about to make the Super Bowl and stuff. And Nick Foles came in and saved them. Zach, could Nick Foles come in and save them once again?
Well, first off, I think it's worth noting, whenever I read this news about Carson Wentz, my heart sank. I am a Carson Wentz fan, and I did think that, the Colts was, this career resurgence of him. He's linking up with a with a coach who he's had a lot of success with. They won a Super Bowl together. And injuries are the thing that have plagued Carson Wentz throughout his career. The ACL, and that, in my opinion, he would have been the MVP if it hadn't been for that ACL tear against the Rams. And he missed out on playing in the Super Bowl, and then the year after, he missed out in the playoffs too. And then in his first playoff appearance, he goes and gets a concussion in that game as well. He just can't get a break. And he's not even made the start of the season, and this has happened. It's an injury which has actually been lingering since high school. It's a broken bone that they haven't removed the bone from. So, it's festered on and has caught up with him. But yes, very interesting to hear that Nick Foles did a press conference with the Bears. And basically said, I'm a Bears quarterback for now.
Yeah.
He said, I'm in the best shape I have been in since the Super Bowl. I'm in better shape than I was then. And he said, I know what it's like playing with Frank Reich. He's my favorite, one of my favorite coaches, if not my favorite coach. He knows me well. Whenever Carson went down, he rewrote that offense around me. And so, he basically, in my opinion, he said, without using the words, come and get me, Frank, he said everything but that. I think that, he definitely would like a move to the Colts because he knows it's an environment where he's going to succeed. Whether Carson is going to like that, I don't know. Colts fans probably will like that. I think he's bound to
be sick and tired of Nick Foles stealing the spotlight from him, isn't he? If I were Carson Wentz, I wouldn't want Nick Foles coming in again.
No.
And honestly, if I was Carson Wentz, I wouldn't want anyone coming in and stealing a possible spotlight, because even the likes of Jacob Eason could come in and have a really good 7 weeks if that's the case. If 7 weeks is the timeline there.
Yeah.
And, I feel like Carson Wentz has actually been the type of quarterback who's been overshadowed his whole career so far. Obviously Nick Foles, and then Jalen Hurts came along and just outplayed him. In my opinion, I think they should have stuck with Carson in Philadelphia. But
I agree.
No, I think he's due a bit of good. He's due something good here in his career, and I think that when he gets back from this injury and he gets put in again as the Colts QB, all being well, he still has the opportunity to do well with that team and possibly even take them on to the playoffs.
I mean, this is the thing. Carson was traded there, and this was Carson's team. You didn't have Jacoby Brissett. He's not at the Dolphins. This was going to be Carson Wentz's team. He had an O-line. Indianapolis have a great O-line. That's something that the Eagles struggled with. He has weapons around him. He's a great running game and a good defense. They're a really complete team. And so I thought Carson was primed for success. That's not to say he's not. Once he comes back from this, I think it's better he gets the surgery instead of plays through and it lingers through and then it festers on, into the late, and maybe he misses the playoffs if he makes it. I think getting a fix is right. However, the rehab from it, the recovery from the injury, it depends. Hopefully it's closer to 5 weeks than 12, but it's a quarterback catastrophe for the Colts. And speaking of quarterback catastrophes, COVID-19 strikes again, and this time it hits Minneapolis, Minnesota. Kellen Mond, rookie quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings, tested positive for COVID-19 and has taken the entire quarterback room down. All of the quarterbacks, including starter Kirk Cousins, are now in isolation and going through the COVID protocols, which leaves them with a bit of a problem. Who's going to play quarterback at camp, Ross?
Well, doesn't look like anyone at the stage. Well, Jake Browning's the only experienced guy in there, to be fair. But the Vikings have had the awful situation of 3 of their guys going out. We saw something similar. You saw something similar in Denver this past season with the likes of Locke went out with COVID, and that took all of the QBs with him. And then Hinton was not his name. Sorry. Yeah. He took the reins there as the quarterback. He hadn't
played quarterback since college, and then all of a sudden find him starting in an NFL game. You couldn't write it.
You couldn't write it. Yeah, but you could have told that he hadn't played quarterback. The way he played wasn't great, but you give him props and say fair play for stepping in. Thankfully, this is only in the stage of training camp, and the season hasn't begun yet. But if the Vikings were in the middle of the season or something, and that took out Kirk Cousins, Kellen Mond, and Nate Stanley all out of their room, they're
disaster.
string quarterbacks, you don't know what you're at. So in response to this, Mike Zimmer has expressed his displeasure with the three of these guys because not only have they, has this happened, but three of them are unvaccinated.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, leave that to your own opinion and and what you think about that whole thing. But he said some of them just don't want to do it. Some of the things they read out there, it's their beliefs. The NFL chief officer of medical,
of health and
that's the one you're
health
helping
professional,
me out there.
health expert. Yeah.
He has set for given the players a bit of information in the way of the vaccination, and after that, it's their own decision if they want to take it or not. But I guess they are persuaded to a degree. But these three guys have decided not to. And you say it's fine until this kind of thing happens, and then you realize where the holes are on how difficult it can be. But yes, in response, the Vikings have signed two QBs to fill out their training camp QB room at the moment. Case Kukis and former Patriots quarterback Danny Etling has been added to the mix as well. A guy who I remember from a few preseasons ago, I remember he took the ball under center for the Patriots, and I think it was a read option, and he sold it. I think he had about 5 or 6 guys on the defense to the right of the defense going the complete wrong direction.
Completely,
and I think they all got cut.
Right.
It was suicidal for those guys. But
wow.
And he took it down the. He took it down the sideline into the end zone. Wow, what a play. But yeah, no, there's not a lot of hope in Minnesota at the moment. What's your opinion on this, Zach?
Yeah, I'm disappointed because I thought, in a different scenario, it would have maybe given us the chance to see Kellen Mond a wee bit more, get more reps. Obviously he's the one who's tested positive, and we hope he returns back safely and he's okay. But it's bad because this is the first real training camp in 2 years. You didn't have it last year. It's a chance for you to really bond as a team, both on the field and off the field. And, COVID has thrown a wrench in the plans and a wrench in the works. You haven't been able to field your starting offense properly. You haven't got Kirk Cousins out there. That's not to say these guys won't come in and they'll do the job of quarterback. But it's different whenever you're trying to establish a relationship between wide receiver and quarterback and wide receiver or running back and quarterback. There's so many different. So this is such a moment for bonding and for maturity and growth of a team. And I hope everything returns back safely, and that they go finish the protocols and they're able to come back into camp. Elsewhere in training camp, Ross, I hear you've been looking at the Jaguars quite closely, trying to see Trevor Lawrence and a certain other player.
All this rubbish. You hear it every day. What's Tim Tebow done in practice?
He looked in great shape.
He did. No, he's looking good, to be fair. But here's what I want to say in regards to Tim Tebow and that whole situation. Yes, it was a great play and all, but if you want to start treating Tebow like a real NFL tight end, then we can't act surprised when this kind of play materializes.
Yes.
This is a play that any run-of-the-mill NFL tight end would make, and it doesn't make the top of your Instagram feed. It's not plastered all over, Sports Network.
But this is the thing. This is where I think the genius of signing Tim Tebow is coming into fruition. We've seen Zach Wilson. He signed his deal. He's now officially a Jet, and he started in the practice. And he hit every single throw he had was covered. There was news stories about it. It was going viral on Twitter. Did that happen for Trevor Lawrence? It only happened when Tim Tebow was on the ball. You're taking that pressure away from Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah,
no, I'm not saying all the pressure's away from him because he's the first overall pick. There is going to be a spotlight on him, but a lot of that media attention has switched over to Tim Tebow, and that's why I think this is a really good signing. Not just for you have Tim Tebow. He's cuttable. You know what I mean? He's not like he's locked in for anything.
You can't cut him after this, Zach. After all the media attention you're giving him,
and that's the beauty of it. You know what I mean? He's going to get this the whole season. So if there's a moment where Trevor Lawrence is maybe struggling, Tim Tebow's going to be the one with the camera on him. I think it helps out Trevor Lawrence a lot.
And actually, I wouldn't be surprised if he did manage to get that tight end one position, because of the amount of reps I've seen him taking with the first team. Seems to indicate that he is definitely putting his hat in the ring for that spot. But you did mention Trevor Lawrence and how the media hasn't been so focused on him. Due to this, it's almost like Tim Tebow's been like kind of like a smokescreen.
Yes.
And I want to touch on that, because if you watch that play, you saw the one thing that I did notice was that Trevor Lawrence had too much time in the pocket.
He was scrambling out left.
He was scrambling about. He was running, here and there and everywhere. And
you aren't going to get that
in real life, in the regular season, that's a sack, possibly even a fumble.
Yeah,
and the Jaguars are instead, and they're instead looking foolish. But that has been painted to look like a successful play, and yes, so it is. I mean, in practice, that's a good play. But I saw someone tweeted, in real life, this goes horribly wrong. This goes the other direction, and I had to agree. I think you need to take a step back and take a step out of the Tim Tebow
scope,
hype for a minute. Take it, leave the Tim Tebow hype train, get off it now, and come back to reality, where we see a rookie quarterback throwing to a veteran who just about made a play there. And there's been so many other different plays in training camp that have deserved our attention. I think we've seen quite a lot in the way of the other rookie QBs doing some stuff. Zach Wilson has
Mac Jones as well.
Yeah. There's been so much happening. What have you seen, Zach, in terms of the other QBs plays and how they're getting on?
Well, one that I'm very interested to see next year, but one that I saw this play and I thought, I remember Aaron Rodgers speaking to Pat McAfee about this, and I was like, oh, that's quite interesting. And he was talking about Matthew Stafford's no-look pass and how it's so underrated and how he has one of the best in the game, and how Mahomes gets all of the spotlight and media attention for it, but actually he's really good. And in Rams practice, he threw a fantastic no-look pass. Whenever I saw it, that was immediately what I thought of. Aaron Rodgers did say this. He's been looking pretty good. He's been linking up quite a bit with Deshaun Jackson, and I think that's going to be a really good duo if Deshaun Jackson, can stay healthy. He's such a great deep threat, and I think Matthew Stafford's really going to like that target. Away from quarterbacks, Najee Harris as well. He's been looking really good for the Steelers. He took one to the house for 50-something yards the other day in practice as well. He looks really nice. So it definitely is. You look at some training camps and they're going very well, and then you go and look at the Dolphins training camp, and there's contract disaster happening right now with Xavier Howard. Have you been reading up about this one, Ross?
Have been. This is I had to laugh at this situation actually, because I think he put up on his Instagram a whole heartfelt message about the whole
big statement.
Yeah, it was. And now about a week later, he's changed his mind and he wants to get a deal done with Miami. And in fact, Brian Flores has said that they're making progress on that front, and things are moving in the right direction for Howard. Do I think he will get the contract that he wants? Yes. But I still think he moves on after this year. I think he'll be traded actually after the season, which is funny because, if he gets the contract, surely that ties him down for a few more years. Yes, but I think that Miami will start to realize that they need to make some moves, and especially after this season where they don't do so well. I don't know what it's me actually predicting the Dolphins later.
Do you have a crystal ball, Ross, or something?
Yeah, I know. And I'm going to mention that the Dolphins season is going to go well, but it's not going to go to plan. And I think that they'll have to take a step back and realize that some things are going badly for them. Anyway, Chandler Jones also wants out of Arizona. And could that be something to do with the signing of JJ Watt?
I don't know, because I thought that JJ Watt and Chandler Jones, I was like, this is such a great pairing. Because if defense or offenses are going to go and cover JJ Watt, well, go Chandler Jones, off you go, and vice versa. This is a defensive nightmare having the two of them. Chandler Jones, obviously, he's one of the greatest at his position in the game. I would say that for Xavier Howard as well, and I think that both of these guys are real hearts of these two defenses. and I don't think that Arizona should have maybe let it go to this far. I think Chandler Jones is worthy of reaching that top money in the league. He's definitely deserving of it, and like same with Xavier Howard. But then again, as I say, Ross, the NFL is a business, and money talks as well. And the cap situation is down this year, so it's not going to be easy for everybody. It's not all going to be sunshine and rainbows. Not everybody's going to be happy with their contract, and these two guys clearly aren't.
No, they're not, Zach. And I think there'll be a lot of different people that come forward and say that they're going to be wanting different things. As money starts to increase and we see the likes of Devontae Adams there, he's not particularly happy. He wants a groundbreaking deal. And he may get that, but then what happens in two more years' time, or even a year's time, when say it could be anyone breaks out of their shell? Yeah. In my opinion, you've got to take what you get and you've got to be happy for it. Maybe things are different for the likes of Devontae Adams, but be content with your situation. That's all I'm going to say. Tyreek wants to race Usain Bolt there, Zach. And this is our last story of the day, so I'm gonna leave this one to you to figure out. I think that I suppose we can both come to the conclusion of who would win this race. But Zach, tell us a wee bit about what's been happening on that front.
Yeah, so Pat McAfee interviewed Usain Bolt this week, and Usain Bolt revealed that because they're both Gatorade athletes, they were meeting together for a promotion deal or something, or I don't know, faux show or whatever it is. And there was a bit of jostling back and forth who could beat who in a race. Tyreek Hill says he's faster. Usain Bolt, obviously, I don't know how many times world champion, fastest man alive, 100 meters champion, all of the above. His CV speaks for itself. Yeah, I think this is an interesting one. Tyreek Hill, he obviously a couple of years ago was trying to make it it was back then, it was Tokyo 2020. But he was wanting to make the men's relay team for the USA, and there's no doubt he's a fast guy and pacey receiver, and a big friend of Patrick Mahomes when it comes to those moments of trouble. But come on now, Usain Bolt's Usain Bolt. That's one thing I'd love to see Usain Bolt with Patrick Mahomes in his day. If he would have made a fantastic receiver.
Sure. Yeah, well, did you not see he tried to make the Manchester United football team?
That's right.
Team. That never happened.
No.
I think Usain Bolt is probably the type of guy who has legs to, he has legs to burn, that guy. He can run for days, but when he starts taking on, activities whilst running, the likes of catching a football or kicking a soccer ball, I think maybe things work out a bit different for him.
Pace isn't everything, Ross.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
That's it.
But here's what I want to say to Tyreek. I'm not sure he's listening, but if he is, on the small chance that he's listening to this, I think...
Hi, Tyreek.
Calm down, please. I think you just want to be in the spotlight wherever it is. Obviously, the Olympics are happening at the moment. Just take a break, okay? Stop calling out everyone just because you think you're the fastest person out there. I hate to break it to you, you're not. And I know you'd probably have me in a race. Imagine if I called them out, that'd be so funny. Not that I would beat him or anything.
You would be smoked, my friend. I'm sorry.
Right. I know that. I'm
sorry.
Just to kind of take him down a notch, just to humble him a bit. The likes of me challenging him to a race, but no, just stay out of it. This guy's an Olympian. You're an NFL footballer. You're two different things. Just take your worth and take your attributes and work on your game and focus on your catching and focus on making the Super Bowl in February instead of trying to call out athletes. But that's where we're going to leave it today. We're going to leave it on that somber
telling off there, Tyreek Hill.
Yep.
Oh dear.
We're going to move on to an interview. We've got Todd Rosenberg, a guy who's probably met Tyreek Hill in his time.
Yeah, he's probably taken lots of pictures of him.
This guy's met everyone. He's an NFL photographer. He's been doing it for years. If you even click on the NFL website and take a look at some of the shots he's taken, I was just blown away by the sheer, photography
volume,
skills of this guy. Yeah. We've got him on in a few seconds for you guys. Keep on listening, and thank you for listening to segment 1.
Welcome to Hard Count Sports, section 2 of the podcast, where we're very pleased to bring you another interview this week. We have an NFL photographer, one of the best in the business. I'm very, very pleased to introduce Todd Rosenberg. Todd, how are you?
Thanks for having me. I'm great. Everything's good over here.
Fantastic.
Getting ready for the season.
Good.
Yeah, it's getting close. It's definitely getting close. Yeah.
We can feel it.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's right.
Something that we always ask our guests is, whereabouts in the world are you and what you're getting up to at the minute?
I'm currently in Chicago, and I'm working on a couple projects. I did some portraits over the past couple weeks, and have to finalize those. And then I've got some work for the Chicago Symphony, which is a big client of mine, putting videos together. So those are the things that I've been working on. And then obviously, we put our schedules together for the NFL.
Yes.
I had to get that in last week, so know what we're going to cover for the season.
Wow, that's incredible.
That's amazing. So it is. And obviously NFL is your weekend job, as you told us just before this podcast commenced. Todd, is there any NFL team that you yourself have an affiliation with or a fandom to? Do you support any team specifically?
Well, being born and raised in Chicago, I'm a big Bears fan, but the Bears have not been having the best seasons the past couple of years. And strangely enough, because the majority of what I've covered was in Green Bay.
Oh,
the Green Bay Packers
right.
have been an interesting team and I've been enjoying following them as well. So I'm kind of I'm unique in that respect, that I like both teams, but I don't cheer for a team necessarily when I'm working. So you kind of cover the game and hope for a good game. But yeah, if any need to go, the Bears would be great, but I've covered the Packers more than any other team.
Yeah, but I've been lucky enough to actually visit Chicago. My brother is a Packers fan, and I remember being on a tour bus, and the tour guide said, "Anybody who's a Packers fan, stand up. We're going under a bridge here." So, there is definitely a very interesting rivalry there. But that's interesting.
Well, I married a Packers fan. I married a woman from Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. So I call myself a cheesehead-in-law. And I went to the University of Wisconsin.
Right. That's a good phrase.
My daughter goes to Wisconsin, and I have a lot of affiliation. The majority of my adult life was spent in Wisconsin. So.
Oh, right. Okay. Very good. Yeah. Very good. So yes. So an NFL photographer. How does that come about? How did the NFL approach you? Do you apply to become a photographer in games? And just tell us a little bit about that.
Well, for me, it started a little differently because I started shooting for the NFL back in the 90s. I had been working for newspapers, and I'd done work for the United Press International, and then I worked for a paper up in Wisconsin. But NFL Properties used to exist, which was an entity within the NFL that photographers worked for, and I started working for them.
Okay.
That then was dissolved by the NFL, and a number of years back, they resurfaced as NFL.com started coming in. So, but I had worked for Properties and then stopped working for them. And then when the NFL Scouting Combine, which is in Indianapolis every year, which I've covered for a number of years, the NFL photographer Ben Liebenberg started covering that when the NFL had more of a interest in it. Combine used to be really kind of like its own thing, but then the NFL kind of took over and started making it a bigger deal. Ben started covering it, and we started getting to know each other, becoming friends and having dinners and things like that. And we discussed it, and I started working for the NFL again.
Wow,
that's incredible. So it is. That's a great story, and obviously not an easy thing to make your way into photography at the highest level of the NFL. And you've photographed some incredible moments throughout the years. I was flicking through some of the photos and some of the shots you've taken. And there's ones that stood out to me, the Minneapolis Miracle, Super Bowl 51, even, Jonathan Stewart jumping over the pile in Super Bowl 50 there was a major moment. And Jerry Rice and Joe Montana and all these greats from years gone by. Todd, is there any specific photos that stick out in your mind as being maybe more memorable or more close to your heart than others?
Well, I would say the first most memorable moment I have is probably back in 1980. I think it was 86. Was Walter Payton up in Green Bay?
Okay.
He
Yep.
ran in for a touchdown, and he did like a high step.
Yes. Yep.
And he's looking basically right at my camera. I mean, it was just
Mm-hmm.
it's so memorable to me because it was back early when I was shooting pro football, and just to have someone that you grew up watching, in that close, because when you're shooting, you're right on the end zone, so he's not that far away. But that's one of my favorite photos of all time, and it was one taken early in my career. And then as far as memorable games, I would say Super Bowl 31, which was the beginning of when I was working for the newspaper up in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, the Fond du Lac Reporter, and I had already left the paper and moved back to Chicago. But I contacted a friend of mine, Paula Mortali, when she was working at the Packers, and I said,
Right. Okay.
what would it take for the Fond du Lac Reporter to cover the Super Bowl? And this was the beginning of the season. And she said for the reporter to get a credential, they'd have to cover every game home and away. And so I told the reporter, I said, look, you can take care of the home games, but I'll cover every game away, and any game that you can't cover, I'll cover. I'll take the credential.
Yeah.
And then if and when they go to the Super Bowl, I'll take that credential. And that's what happened. So had I bet on it, I probably would have done pretty well, because I would have picked the Packers to go to the Super Bowl in week 1. So I was credentialed to go for the Fond du Lac Reporter and basically cover the game by myself and shoot the game. So that was pretty cool to go that whole season and then to shoot that Super Bowl, which was a great game. It was a really exciting game, and it was fun to shoot.
Definitely. And I'm curious about that. I saw as well you covered, I think it was Super Bowl 48 with the Seahawks, and you had a fantastic picture of Russell Wilson hoisting the Lombardi Trophy. And that's something that's fans, we see that on TV. As soon as the game is over, every camera, every single TV, whether it be photography, is on the field. How difficult is that for you to get pictures in amongst all that chaos?
Well, when you're covering it like I did for 31, it's different, because you're trying to find a story and go after the story. When you're covering it with a team, when we do it for the NFL, everyone's assigned to do certain things.
Okay.
So I either you're given you say you're going to get the winning quarterback or the losing quarterback, or you're going to cover. I'll cover, for instance, when Atlanta played, I was on the Atlanta sideline, and I was to cover whatever happened to the Falcons. Now, had they won, I would have been covering a victory, but because they lost, I was covering a loss. So you're assigned to do specific things. So if the team wins, it's not about me getting the individual shot, it's about the team getting all the shots necessary. So that's kind of how it is. So that the individuality of it and going after specific shots kind of dissolves when you're going to actually go and work with the team.
Has there ever been a situation, maybe where you've tried to pursue a specific player, in adding to your repertoire of shots? Has there ever been, maybe a standout like Patrick Mahomes, say, he's emerged on the scene, or a Josh Allen, and you've said to yourself, right, I really need to get a shot of this guy?
Well, I mean, part of the covering the game is, again, telling the story. So whatever when you walk into a game and you're covering it, you kind of think of what the story is that you're trying to tell, whether it's Mahomes or Allen or a receiver or a running back, and you try and study and see what you're walking into. Is it a running team? Is it a passing team? And sometimes it's tougher, but like when you go to, like, for instance, I shot the playoff game between the Colts and the Bills this last year. I had only covered the Colts. I had not covered the Bills, and I had never been to Buffalo. But fortunately, Buffalo is known to be a very crazy stadium.
Yes. And jumping off tables and on the tables.
Yeah, exactly. And this was the first game with fans, so they were quite excited, but it was minimal, but they were still rowdy. But you're still trying to cover the game, and you don't know the stadium as far as the light is concerned, and just trying to figure things out. But you pay attention to the players that are noted and things like that. But trying to figure out a team for the first time, especially in a playoff situation, is a little challenging.
Definitely. And, another part of, it must be incredible being a photographer, being on the sideline to all these games and seeing these incredible moments in front of your eyes, in front of your camera. But it's not all good news for photographers. We see on TV, whenever you have a 200-pound running back and he's tackled and he hits out of bounds, you're one of those guys who's going to bump into. Has that ever happened to you? Have you ever had a collision? Any funny stories come from that?
I've never had a collision during a pro game.
Okay.
The good news is that because we're shooting with longer lenses, we're generally
further away.
Yep.
And the other thing is that the players really know the box. I mean, they obviously, if it's something that's incidental where they're not able to control themselves, then that happens. But the only time that's ever happened for me was at a college football game in Colorado, and a player got pushed out of bounds, and he got pushed into me, and the damage was to the lens and his arm, but I lost the lens, but I didn't.
Oh dear.
Nothing happened to me, but it hurt him more than it hurt me. So.
And you mentioned there actually at the beginning of the podcast how you have a bit of an affiliation with Chicago and how your wife is from Green Bay. And when you're going to games there to photograph, and do you ever find yourself taking a step back and thinking to yourself, wow, I'm covering these guys close up, and I'm a football fan myself. Do you ever find that inner football fan coming out when you are at these games? Are you ever kind of mesmerized by the situation you're in?
I would say walking in, I get to a stadium 3 to 4 hours ahead of time, not during COVID, but normally we get to a game 3 to 4 hours ahead of time. And that gives you a chance to kind of soak in what's going on. A new stadium, I haven't been to many new stadiums because I've been to almost all of them, but to walk into an empty stadium before a game, whether it's during the season or the postseason, is pretty cool. I mean, to see these huge amphitheaters made for sport, that's where it kind of hits you in that respect. When you're covering the game, fan or not, I do separate it. I do, because you're spending so much time trying to focus on making sure that you get the moments, you catch the right moments. If you spend the time trying to, if you get caught in that stardom and fandom, then it kind of it detracts from what you're trying to do. So
yes,
and the closer a game, the harder it is to think about that stuff. You're generally thinking only about trying to get the moment. I mean, I think before and after the game is when you start to soak in, but that happens with everything. It's like, I'm really fortunate to be doing what I love to do, and I've been doing this for a long time. One of the first sports, it was basketball and football were the two sports I started photographing when I was in junior high and high school. So I've always loved photographing the sports, and to be able to do it on a professional level has been amazing. So I'm very, very fortunate in that respect. I think sometimes when I do the portraits of athletes up close, that's when it hits you more, because you're spending time talking to these athletes and getting to know them a little bit, and that's quite cool. So getting one-on-one with athletes is pretty cool.
On that note of being one-on-one with some of these athletes, I know you were one-on-one with Michael Jordan, LeBron James. Is there there are some basketball players, and even taking all sports into account, maybe even all celebrities who you've ever been in the same room with, is there any people that stick out to you as being that bit more classy? Have there been any friendships formed with yourself and some of these celebrities?
I think that the most interesting thing that goes on right now is with the NFL Combine. We're photographing these players that are coming in as rookies. So I photographed Cam Newton as a rookie. I photographed, you name it, TJ Watt, Blake Bortles. I mean, everyone from we started doing portraits for Sports Illustrated a number of years back, and so I've got to know them first up close in that respect. The ironic thing is that 9 times out of 10, when you're photographing them, you get them for about 3 to 5 minutes. Like the LeBron James shoot was literally, he was in the room for 5 minutes. Kevin Garnett was in the room. They gave us 2 minutes. So, and when the NFL Combine, we get each player for 3 minutes. So he's in the room doing other things, but I get him on my set for 3 minutes. So there's not a lot of time to get to know them. Like I just posted it's a 10-year, the one I shot the cover with Larry Fitzgerald, and I had him for probably about 45 minutes to an hour.
Okay. Wow.
Working on things because it was right after the lockout, and he was extremely nice, extremely friendly.
Yeah.
And we had an amazing shoot. As far as friendships are concerned, the one that I would say I've had a bond with is the U.S. Women's soccer player Christine Lilly, who I started documenting when she was going to the Olympics, and Sports Illustrated wanted her to do a blog, and I went and did her portrait, and we met in Chicago and we became friends, and I still keep in touch with her, and I've shot her soccer camps and I shot her wedding and that. So I'd say the one that I've maintained a friendship with.
Yes.
As far as athletes that are playing in the NFL, there are a couple that recognize me or know me, like TJ Watt. I photographed when he was at Wisconsin, where I went. I did a thing for Fox when they were going to the Big Ten championship, and so from then on, I photographed him at that, and then I photographed him at the combine, and then I see him on the field, and I did something with American Family with him and his brothers, so he recognizes me and knows me, and we communicate. But as far as friendships, it's a business relationship, and I'm not affiliated with a team, so they don't really know me, but he will recognize me when he sees me. So
that's pretty cool. And I'd say there's a big difference between photographing an athlete who's right in front of you and as you are giving them instructions and they listen, and then on the sideline in an NFL game, and also covering sports as well. As you mentioned, you were covering football and basketball. But how does that compare with your other projects, with ballet, for example?
Well, with dance, I've always said the thing is that the choreographers and the artistic directors that I work with said that the photography that I do in sport definitely plays the effect of decisive moments in dance. Whereas I don't know dance, or I didn't know it. To be able to stop action, at its peak comes from the sports photography. And then they have said to me that they think my football photography has changed and improved, and that I now that the players look a little more artistic and they're flying in a different way. But I've always said that no one cares how a football player's foot is pointed when they're in the air. So there's a lot more precision and technical desire for how someone looks in a dance photo than in a football photo. So. But that's kind of where it comes in, is that maybe I see images a little differently now that I've been doing dance for so long.
You'll never see a football fan disregarding a photograph because of a player's helmet is reflecting the sun in an awkward position.
Exactly.
You're right
if
there.
they're scoring, they're scoring, they won't care. They can do everything.
That's it.
The irony is, I think that if football fans spent some time watching dance, they'd be pretty amazed, because they're basically as athletic, if not more, in many respects, except that there's just so much more muscle tone seen. So it's quite amazing to watch the athletes that the dancers are. They're amazing. They're amazing athletes, and their core work is, they burn more calories in a rehearsal than we do in the week. So.
Wow. That's something we'll have to get into then, Zach. We'll have to take a look at it.
Yeah, exactly. We'll watch a little dance.
I can't see us doing a dance podcast, but you never know. Todd, as we come to the end of these interviews, we like to take things down a maybe more trivial path. And we're keeping on the subject of the NFL. We saw last year the Super Bowl the Super Bowl matchup was Kansas City versus Tampa Bay. Obviously, Tom Brady got his 7th ring. Were you at that game yourself?
No, I wasn't, because of COVID, as everyone says. Our team was limited, and I also, just traveling down there, everyone was relegated to the operational zone, which is the inner ring that's on the front. Right. So no, if the Packers had gone, I don't know if I would have been on that team or not, because I had covered the Packers the whole season, but I'm pretty sure Ben had locked in our team, and I don't believe I was going to be going regardless. So I didn't miss that one. And because of what I do, I oftentimes am out of the country for the Super Bowl with New York.
But anyway, moving forward now to this upcoming season, as a fan, maybe becoming more of a fan role for a second, who do you see in the Super Bowl this upcoming year?
You know what, to be honest, I don't really know. I mean, I would say I could see Tampa Bay repeating. I think that
Okay.
Tom Brady
Yep.
he is amazing as far as his tenacity and his dedication, and he's methodical with regards to how he is. I could see him wanting to go and succeed, and they have all the players in place,
Yes.
and
Yep.
everyone stays healthy.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone's looking at the Packers because of what's going on with Aaron Rodgers, but I
Yeah.
just don't know.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know that. I mean, he again has that desire to win, but again, it all comes upon how healthy they can remain. And Kansas City has a good path. I mean, Kansas City always has a good path, and with Mahomes playing well, I mean, they're in a good shape. He's an amazing athlete and can do that. Buffalo looked great at the end of the season, but again, it all comes on to how healthy a team can be.
Exactly.
The Rams looked good when they came to Green Bay, but don't know. I mean, it's so hard to anyone that's predicting a championship match this early knows you can't do that. That's
exactly all
that's all for banter, because it's all about how healthy a team can remain, and
It's true. Yep.
and that's pretty much it.
Definitely. And the Super Bowl is in SoFi Stadium. I'm hoping the Packers go now, because I would love to see you take some pictures of SoFi Stadium. It's very very, very nice stadium, and I'd love to see you take some
I'd
photos.
love to go.
Yeah.
I won't go if it's the Packers or not. The NFL works as we have I think we now have 10 photographers that work for the NFL, and there's a rotation.
Right.
John Beaver, who has photographed for Sports Illustrated, and then he's your most decorated photographer, is the only photographer, and now I think one of the only people that has attended and worked every single Super Bowl. So he is always on the team. He is on he'll be on every single Super Bowl until he decides he doesn't want to shoot. He shot the first one at age 15. So he's got some years left.
That's amazing.
Got some time, but and then Ben is our director. He's always there. And then the team fills out. So I don't assume anything, I hope, but I would hope to be at the Super Bowl regardless. And I always ask, but I never expect.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
Well, we hope you're there, Todd, because the photos we've seen coming from your Super Bowl, traveling to the Super Bowl and so forth and so on, you've come out with amazing shots, and I suppose you'll continue to do so. Is the NFL something that you want to keep on doing for years to come?
Absolutely. I'll do it as long as I can. This is my 35th season. So, and the funny thing is that the photographers I work with, a few of them aren't even 35 yet. So it's kind of odd to know that I am the most senior member of the team that we work with, but I'll shoot it as long as I can. It's definitely more physical. We're kneeling. I'm kneeling at every game. Fortunately, the camera gear has gotten a little bit lighter, so it's not as bad. But it's definitely a workout, but I enjoy it. I think the best thing to say is that, in some respects, for me, as a job, it's a job, but as a passion, it's kind of like my golf. It's where I get to be around other. I get to be around other photographers. I get to have a Sunday or Monday where I'm working, but I'm also enjoying being outside, being on the field, and challenging myself to try and obtain something. So that's where I love doing it. It's one of the few times that I'm around other photographers. Most of my other jobs, I'm the only photographer there. But with football, I'm with other photographers photographing. So that's quite enjoyable, and getting to be around friends that I've known for years and see friends from around the country, depending on the game that we're at.
Definitely. And for our listeners who maybe want to go and have a look at some of your photography, could you tell us a bit about your Instagram account, maybe your website as well?
Yeah, my Instagram, everything, because I'm old, everything is at Todd R Photo. So it's toddarphoto.com and at Todd R Photo for Instagram and at Todd R Photo for Twitter. So
that's fantastic.
Yep. Give it a look. Everyone who's listening who may be interested in maybe even taking photos yourself, or if you're interested in photography, even videography, you can take a look at that.
Definitely check it out. It's fantastic.
Yeah. Todd, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. As I mentioned to you before we started, we've had athletes, we've had college players, NFL, some NFL guys, we've had coaches, but we've had no one really who kind of sums up that side of the ball, that side of the sport. And it's a pleasure to have you on, a guy who is same, you know, who's in the NFL situation, but has taken on a very different role. And you know, it's great insight. So thank you very much for coming on, and we wish you all the best in the future.
Thanks so much for having me. It was great to talk to you guys.
And when
No
we're
worries.
watching our games next year on TV, we'll keep an eye out on the sideline and
Yep,
try and
that's
see if
right.
we spot a familiar face.
That's right.
As long as I don't, yeah, if I get hit, that's a problem.
Thank you very much, Todd.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me.
Welcome back to segment 3 of the podcast. We've just had Todd Rosenberg on there, high up photographer in the NFL, and he's a great guy, very serious and very focused on his craft. And you know exactly when he opened his mouth to start talking about the stuff that he does, that he's passionate about it. Zach, what were your thoughts and opinions on him?
Yeah, you know, as he said there, he's been working as a photographer for 35 years. Some of the people that he has met, he's worked with, and that he's taken photos of, it's absolutely incredible. I would highly recommend people, if you're listening, to go and have a look at his Instagram and just scroll through, see some of the people that he has worked with and photographed. Pictures of Obama there as well. You know, Michael Jordan, the story of Michael Jordan is a fantastic one. I'd highly recommend going and having a look at that post. But no, a very, very skilled man, very talented photographer. And we were, you know, we can't thank him enough for joining us on our episode of this week's podcast, Ross.
Yeah, definitely. And we're going to now move into the series we've been doing over these past few episodes, which is breaking down the NFC and AFC conferences, and we've been going division by division. And this week we're landing on the East. It's an interesting one because there's a lot of teams to cover in both the NFC and AFC side of the ball that are actually you're a wee bit unsure about where they might go this season. You know, obviously involved in this is the NFC East, that famous division that is known for scraping into the playoffs with a team at the top of it who usually has either a tied record or a losing record. And I'm looking forward to breaking down this week's divisions. Zach, what are your thoughts on the AFC and NFC East?
Yeah, they're very interesting ones. You know, I think the NFC East maybe isn't the greatest division in football, but it is very competitive, highly competitive, and you do see a rotation of teams who win the division. The AFC East as well, there's quite a few interesting teams there. Teams here maybe in a bit of a rebuild, some in a transitional period, and some here find themselves reaping the benefits of going through that sort of a rebuild, as I was saying, in the Buffalo Bills in particular. But I think we're going to start off with the NFC East, and I have the pleasure of kicking us off this week, Ross.
Go for it, Zach. Yes, I'm looking forward to hearing it. I am ready, yeah.
So I'm going to start with the winner of the division from last season, the Washington Football Team, who have gone through an interesting period in their history just before last year. They decided to retire the name of the team as in the Redskins, probably what you'll remember them by mainly. And they've gone through, they chose the phrase football team. At the start, I thought this is the stupidest name I've ever heard.
I know.
It's actually starting to grow on me a bit. I quite like it.
Has it? I guess that's usually what happens though when you hear it for, you know, so long. It does end up growing on you, but I think they've got to change it.
No, they are going to change it. This is the last season they're going to have this name, and then they're going to reveal what the franchise will be called next. But yes, the team, the Washington Football Team, went 7-9 last year, and they won the division, as I said, on a losing record, which in the NFC East is not very, you know, it's not big, not a huge surprise.
But they still went through.
They did.
So they did.
They made it to the playoffs. They lost in the wild card round versus Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, in a game in which they dipped down into their quarterback room, and Taylor Heineke actually played that game and was, in a word, incredible. Had an amazing run into the end zone, and I think he was trending all over social media that evening. Everybody was rooting for him, and he had a great game. But this is a team who, you know, they had a new head coach in Ron Rivera, veteran head coach formerly of the Panthers, who I think has done a fantastic job of steadying the ship with this franchise. They figured it out towards the end of the year. They finished winning their final 5 games. And this is how the offense and defense looked. Offensively, they weren't as great. They finished the 30th total offense in the league, 26th in rushing, and 25th in passing. You also had Dwayne Haskins, a former first-round pick. He was cut last year. And that sort of tells you a bit about Ron Rivera in that he's not going to shy away from making tough decisions for Washington. Other coaches, they're going to go, right, we're going to stick with this guy because it's the decision the organization has taken. But the minute that Haskins, he left the game early after a disappointing result, and that just did not sit well with Ron Rivera. And I think with his releasing of Haskins, it shows everybody that there is a culture shift coming to Washington, and it's here to stay with Ron Rivera. And I'm all for it. You also had Alex Smith, who came back from that, and that terrible injury he suffered, and to play more snaps in the NFL.
That was crazy. Couldn't believe my eyes when he came back from that.
He's retired this offseason. But you have a fantastic group of players on that offensive side. You have Terry McLaurin, who was a fantastic wide receiver. Had over 1,000 receiving yards. Antonio Gibson at running back as well. I also like JD McKissick. I think they're quite a good running back duo. Logan Thomas at tight end is another name who I think is going to have a really good season this year. But really, this is where the main part of Washington, why they won that division, in my opinion, it was their defense. They were the 2nd overall defense in the NFL, 2nd against the pass and 13th against the run. That defensive line, Ross, is spicy. They've got 4 first round picks on that line. They've invested heavy in it, and it's now coming to fruition. You have Chase Young, who coming off his rookie season was unbelievable.
Amazing. He was.
Montez Sweat, another name I'll throw out there. Who I think he's done a fantastic job.
And they've got a decent secondary, Cameron Curl as well, who I've mentioned.
I know you think he's gonna. You have a.
I think this is a major breakout year for him.
You like him. You've picked him. That's one. They've lost a couple of guys in the secondary. Ronald Darby, he's been traded to the Denver Broncos. But they've also got better in other areas. The linebacker position, for example, they took Jamin Davis in the first round, and I'm quite looking forward to see what he can do. But the main piece of work that they've done this free agency period, and the bit that I really, really like, is bringing in Fitzmagic himself, Ryan Fitzpatrick. He obviously was with the Dolphins last year. Tua was waiting in the wings, and when Tua couldn't quite get it going, he was in, and he looked fantastic at parts.
He did.
I am
didn't look his age at all.
He did
so
not.
much younger.
He did not. I am a Ryan Fitzpatrick fan, and whenever he was benched for Tua, yes, I felt disappointed for him. And I didn't think he would have a fit future with the Dolphins after that. He definitely came out and said that he felt that this was his team. And I think that Washington is going to be a good fit for him. I think he's going to enjoy working with those weapons around him. I think Terry McLaurin and him have already looked pretty good in training camp. But I also really like Curtis Samuel, who they got from the Carolina Panthers this offseason.
He's a major weapon.
He finished with 851 receiving yards and 3 touchdowns. But his speciality, his X factor, is his ability to run and rush. I think he'll be a really good jet sweep weapon.
And you have to remember those two guys are pairing up again, McLaurin and Samuel. 2 ex-Ohio State teammates. And I saw a post recently on BR Gridiron where Terry had said to Curtis in college in the dorm rooms, one day we'll be playing in the NFL together. It's come to fruition now with the Redskins, or the football team, sorry.
There you go. Yeah, absolutely. We've seen that with Odell Beckham Jr. and Jarvis Landry. They've linked up together in Cleveland, so it must be really cool for these guys to go and play with their college teammates in the pro level. But I'm really looking forward to seeing Ryan Fitzpatrick. I think Ron Rivera is doing an incredible job battling cancer as well last season.
Amazing.
Just to add that in as
hot off them,
it's just unbelievable. And I do have bright hopes for this team. My prediction is that they'll go 9-8, and I think they'll win this division again.
Ooh, I have the exact same prediction.
Oh, there you
as
go.
you.
There you
Zach, I'm also saying 9-8 for the Washington football team. And I don't know how many pennies are in that jar now, the Redskin jar. I think it must be full at this point.
We'll be going for a nice meal after all this, Ross.
Yes, we'll have to. The New York Giants, then, they finished second in the East Division. This is a team that, there's a lot of kind of heat and a lot of eyes on them, this season. They have a tough schedule. It isn't a desirable one. In the middle of it, they have to face Kansas away and Tampa away, two teams that played in last year's Super Bowl, obviously. In terms of offensive performance last year, the Giants ranked the second lowest in 2020, with a total of 4,794 yards. Now, they realized there was an issue. Obviously, Daniel Jones, he was to blame, but sometimes he wasn't. You can't put everything on him, and obviously, taking Saquon Barkley out of that situation, things aren't going to end up well. But put him back in the mix this season and give Daniel Jones other targets to throw to, other weapons. They spent big in free agency on Kenny Golladay. They also drafted Kadarius Toney in the draft. Those are two major weapons added to the Giants wide receiver room. And I think that this should now be enough to push Daniel Jones over the edge into being that quarterback who can challenge, in the division. And
he's really set up for success.
Yeah, he is set up for success. And, especially with Barkley now to his right in the backfield or to his left or whatever they're drawing up there in New York, there's a lot more to work with. The line isn't too bad. You've got a healthy Sterling Shepard and Evan Ingram as well there. So here's what I'm going to say. Offensively, the Giants have enough now to do the work that they need to do. I think Daniel Jones will be relied upon. Can he get them there? Can he do the job that they want him to? I feel like he can, but I think that's about it. I think he's a quarterback who gets them the bare minimum this season. I don't think he excels, sadly. And I think the New York Giants will realize, maybe not after this season, they'll maybe let it play out for another year, but soon enough they'll realize that he isn't the answer there, quarterback. But that's my opinion. Let's move on to defensively. So defensively, the Giants were a lot more promising this season. They finished with a ranking of 12th overall this year defensively. They have a decent pass rush with Leonard Williams and Dexter Lawrence coming off the two edges there. Also, not to mention the fact that they have a very, very good secondary. With now maybe even one of the best cornerbacks in the league, James Bradbury.
I'm a huge fan.
Now, one of these guys who could be considered possibly even top 4, top 5. In my opinion, he's not right up there, but he is in amongst the best.
He's shown a lot of promise, yeah.
He has. And now as well, you have to remember they've got two safeties who are decent. You've got Jabril Peppers and now the addition of Adoree Jackson, another speedster out of Tennessee. And he can do it all. I remember watching him in college and he was lined up at wide receiver. He was in the backfield and obviously he committed to playing safety in the NFL, but this guy can do anything and he can keep up with the likes of the Tyreek Hills and stuff. I'm going to break it down like this. I think the Giants can do well this year. It's another thing if they will. I think they will rely on their defense in the majority of games. You have to remember that when we're doing these breakdowns, it's easier than just saying an overall look. You almost want to take it game by game to see
exactly
can they win this game? Can they win this game? And then sometimes you find yourself just giving a random prediction and saying, they'll get this because this is the type of team they are. But if you look at it game by game, and you go back to the types of the Tampa Bay away and the Kansas City away, I think the Giants will be the type of team this year who get who get very close but don't get the full cigar. I think
Okay.
they'll come close to winning, but they'll not shut out. They'll not they'll not finish the job. And that will be the tail of the Giants' season this year. I can see them going 8-9, which is a decent record actually for them. But I think they have all the promise to go much higher than that. But not this year. Not this year.
Ross, have you been reading my notes again?
Oh, why have you gone for the exact same thing?
I have gone for 8 and 9 Giants. I have them finishing second. And I definitely agree. I think that this is a team that they are showing steps in the right direction. Daniel Jones really, in my opinion, hasn't got many excuses now for what he's gone, what he can do. He's been given so many different weapons. I think Golladay is going to be a really good addition for them. What my concern is, I hope that Saquon Barkley can stay healthy because
that's it. Yeah.
As an NFL fan, it's better when Saquon Barkley is healthy because that man is an unbelievable talent. They say that
Definitely.
he is Barry Sanders, with a stiff arm and everything else. He's so athletic. It's unbelievable.
Yes.
But I do think that it's strange because Saquon, they've invested so much in Saquon. He was the second pick in the draft.
Well, he had to be, didn't he, Zach? I mean, that's where they were picking, and it was one of those situations where they couldn't take anyone else.
No, definitely
so
not.
The question is, if they had to take him, and then there's another side of it: did they really want him? And okay, maybe they did, but Saquon, in my opinion, hasn't panned out as well as he could have.
Yeah, and that was the point I was going to make is that there's so much hype around Saquon, and I would say that it's fair enough, but it hasn't fully translated in my opinion, and I'd love to see it translate. I think the kid's amazing, so hopefully Saquon could pull through for the full season, and it'll be great to watch. Some great highlight reels
the fact
coming.
That you're calling him a kid.
Yeah, I know, he's older than me. Yeah, he's older than me, so I don't know.
I thought that. I just wanted to be sure. But...
It's like my brother. My brother called the delivery man son the other day. Like, are you kidding me? Anyway, yes. Now on to the next team in this division breakdown. Third place last year with a 6-10 record. Let's go down to Dallas, Ross. The Cowboys. Yes.
Yeah.
They missed the playoffs last year, and it was their first season since 2006 without Jason Garrett in the building, with head coach Mike McCarthy, and it was a pretty rough debut year for Mike McCarthy. Now that said, they were plagued with injuries, mainly quarterback Dak Prescott. We all saw that week 5 game against the Giants where he had that compound fracture and ankle dislocation, and everybody was just praying that he could walk again. Up to that point, Dak was balling out with 1,856 yards, 9 touchdowns. And they showed so much promise for the season.
They did, yeah.
But overall, whenever he got injured, the season sort of grounded to a halt a bit. Offense finished 14th overall, 17th in rushing, and 8th passing. And on the offensive side of the ball, yes, okay, we didn't have a quarterback. They're the starting quarterback. Yes, we had Andy Dalton, which I think was a pretty good piece of business by Jerry before the season, but whenever it came in, it didn't, it wasn't fantastic. But they have a fantastic receiver core. Amari Cooper, CD Lamb in his rookie season last year, I think is really good. And Michael Gallup too. But when I think of the Cowboys in 2020, I think of one insane disappointment. Where was Zeke? Where did Zeke Elliott go? Where is Ezekiel Elliott? Can someone please go and find him and tell him that they need him in Dallas?
He's too busy roping about Dallas with his shirt pulled up.
Where did he go? Where?
I don't know.
Where? It was that really frustrated me. I was really disappointed by that.
He's, I was saying about, you were saying about Saquon Barkley earlier.
Yeah.
Ezekiel Elliott's basically the worst outcome for the type of person Barkley can become, the type of athlete that he can become. That's a really bad example set by Elliott, because he was another high pick. What was he? Was he 4th in the draft?
He was very, very high.
And he has been a complete disappointment. in
fantastic.
Dallas.
No, well, fantastic rookie season. It hasn't maybe
Well,
since
yes,
I would argue since he got his big contract, he's been very disappointing. But yeah, Zeke needs to come back this year.
Is not always the way it goes, though.
Yeah, well, definitely. It could with Dak. He got paid this off season. And I think Jerry came out and said he's earning the most amount of money in 2021 for any player in the NFL, and I would argue deservedly so. I really do like Dak Prescott. I think as a man, he's gone through so much. And he's been such an advocate for mental health as well. But as the player, I think whenever he got injured, this really sums up Dak Prescott to me. Whenever he got injured,
though, Zach, because sorry, just to go ahead there. I'll not break you up yet. Go ahead.
The main thing. This is why I like Dak Prescott so much. I think he's a fantastic leader. Whenever he got injured, he took COVID tests daily because yes, he was rehabbing. Yes, he was going through all that, but he wanted to remain around that team because he wanted to help them in any way he could, and that's why I think Dak Prescott is a serious. That's why I think Jerry was okay giving him so much money.
I was about to rudely interrupt you there, and I've probably just done it again, but I wanted to say that, obviously what I said about Saquon Barkley and Ezekiel Elliott and Tyreek Hill earlier on in the episode, they may be 3 people off our list for future interviews, possibly, which is sad.
Here, I didn't say a bad word. I said a bad word about Zeke, but I didn't say a bad word about anybody else. So
you're open once again, Tyreek. If you're actually still listening,
he's probably got your face on a dartboard now.
I know.
Yes.
Don't take that seriously.
It's only banner. It's only banner. Defensively, this is where it was appalling for the Cowboys. 23rd defense overall, 31st against the run, and 11th against the pass. The average points given per game was 29.4. Ross, 29.4.
That's poor.
And they allowed 6,361 yards. With the defense, which has got you've got the likes of DeMarcus Lawrence, who's in a very big contract right now. He didn't make 10 sacks. He got 6.5 sacks. Jalen Smith, he was pretty good, 154 tackles, and a linebacker who I was really, I really liked. Leighton Vander Esch had a pretty rough year last year, and he sort of disappeared. And this is also something that I think of the 2021 Cowboys. I think this is going to have a big impact. Is Sean Lee is gone. Sean Lee has retired from the NFL, and he was an absolute leader. He was the leader of that defense. He really set the tempo for what that defense could do.
Every defensive play that was made by Dallas, he was always something to do with it. I just remember watching back, in games, number 50 was always involved somehow.
Go and watch All or Nothing Cowboys. Sean Lee and Jason Witten are the 2 guys who are really lighting the fire under the rest of the team and telling them, come on guys, we can do this, and being that motivation, that motivational factor that Tom Brady's brought to Tampa. You don't have Jason Witten anymore. Okay, Sean Lee was still there. Sean Lee's now gone. Who's going to stand up? I'm concerned about that. The defense played so poorly that Mike Nolan was a casualty of it. He's been fired as defensive coordinator and been replaced by Dan Quinn, the author and creator of the Legion of Boom defense in Seattle, and then went on to Atlanta. I'm interested to see what he can do. I think he's got his work cut out, but they have made some different changes to sort of improve the defense. He brought in Keanu Neal from Atlanta, in the secondary, who I think is a fantastic player, but a bit like Saquon Barkley, he's gonna, is he gonna make a full year? Probably not with injuries. And Micah Parsons, linebacker out of Penn State,
surprising pick actually.
That'll be an interesting one. And I think Leighton Vander Esch has got work cut out for competing for a position with him. What I want to see this year, I want to see Zeke back. I want to see DeMarcus Lawrence really earn that contract. Yeah. But I think that Dallas won't make the playoffs again. I have them at 7-10.
Oh, okay.
I'm not on the hype train. I'm sorry.
swap
I'm
those
up.
two numbers around, and you've
Okay.
got what I'm thinking. I think the Cowboys top that group this year.
Okay.
I'm saying 10-7 for them. And it's really due to the fact, I'm not going to go into depth, but it's due to the fact that Dak's back. And I do think that, although I'm not a huge fan of him really as a player, he's a great man, but as a player, I'm still not sold. I do think he is much better than a lot of the quarterbacks in the league.
Yeah.
And he's the best quarterback in that division by a long shot. And I think that really when you look at it, they play Washington, Philadelphia, and New York twice a year. There's no way that Cowboys team can't, if with a healthy Dak, win all those 6 games. So that's what I'm going to say. I'm going to move now on to the team that finished last in that division, the Philadelphia Eagles. And I'm going to say, really, I'm going to go quite quickly through this because we don't want to be eating up too much of your time. If you're still listening, we really appreciate it. But this is a really huge year actually for the Eagles because now they're coming into a year where they've a new head coach, Nick Sirianni. They've a new QB1 and a solidified QB1, Jalen Hurts. He's been given the reins there. It's their first year away from Doug Peterson and the Carson Wentz, and that whole regime that took them to the Super Bowl not so long ago. So this is it's a very early prove-it year, in my opinion. They have to get off the ground the right way here. They have to show the fans that they mean business and that they're going to be successful. Do I think they do that? No. Offensively for Philly, there are some positives to take away. Hurts, I'm not sure on, but I do know that he showed this year that he is a dual threat quarterback. He can both run and throw the football. In my opinion, Jalen Hurts is kind of like that guy who's, the jack of all trades, but the master of none. He doesn't convince me as to his quarterback ability. Sure, there was, talk before the draft that he was going to move to wide receiver.
Yeah. That's never a good sign.
I don't think, it's not a good sign. I mean, they said the same about Lamar Jackson, but his pure running ability has just seen him through kind of. And I would even go as far to say that Lamar throwing isn't even convincing either. But they do have promise on the ground. Obviously, with Hurts moving the ball with his legs, Sanders and Boston Scott have past season they racked up 2,027 yards. So in 2020 they ranked 25th or 24th offense, which isn't awful. But they have got a new weapon in Devontae Smith, so they can maybe improve on that. They have got the likes of Travis Fulgham in there. Jalen Reagor, still a huge question mark over his head as to what's actually going to come out of him.
And Zach Ertz at the moment.
Yeah, and from what I've heard about Jalen Reagor so far in training camp, which I mean is about a week, hasn't been promising.
Nope.
I mean, he hasn't.
Nope.
I don't think he's up to much really, but defensively, then the Birds are just. Well, they're not as bad there. They ranked 18th in 2020. They showed promise on the secondary. And they've now got Slay and Steve Nelson added to that mix, who, could bring them up even more. Defensive front-wise, Fletcher Cox, as long as he's on that line, they're ripping up everything. I mean, that guy's a monster.
He's really good.
So never write that defense off. So what I want to say, just to break things down really quickly, is that the Eagles, under their new management and Nick Sirianni leading the way this year, will have to overcome a lot of different stumbling blocks, and they'll have to maybe just try to rise above. I don't have a lot of hope for the Philadelphia Eagles this year, so I'm putting them at a 6-11, and I'll leave it there.
I'm going one worse, 5-12.
Okay. So you're on the same page.
I agree. Super Bowl 52 was a long time ago, and there's a statue of Doug Peterson and Nick Foles outside Lincoln Financial Field, and that should tell you everything you need to know about what's happened since then. It's not been fun, but it's a new regime, so that brings hope. Flipping over now to the AFC East and beginning things again with the Buffalo Bills, who won the division for the first time since 1995. and they actually swept the division for the first time in history, which is pretty cool.
Mm.
They beat the Colts in wild card round, and they won the divisional round as well, but lost in the AFC Championship to the Kansas City Chiefs. Their offense was second overall, 20th in rushing and third in passing, and I think they had the best trade, played out as the best trade of 2019, with Stephon Diggs becoming an absolute stud in that offense. Him and Josh Allen worked brilliantly. Josh Allen, in my opinion, is for real. I had some concerns.
Definitely, huge fan of him.
This year, he's written, I'm wrong. I'm happy to admit that. And the thing that I like most is that his accuracy has improved so much in his decision making.
Yeah.
He no longer has that, that you see him in the playoffs the first time around against the Texans, like that. The lights were too bright for him. He's got maturity now. He's got, just a very level head on his shoulders, and I think, nothing can faze him. Wide receivers around him. You've got Gabriel Davis, who's been pretty good. Isaiah McKenzie, and also I think the fact that they have went out and got Emmanuel Sanders is always a good sign, because Emmanuel Sanders is usually on at the minute. Well, he's turned into a player that you sign if you're going to go to the Super Bowl or close to, New Orleans and the 49ers. Running attack, I think they've been pretty good. Devin Singletary's pretty good. Zach Moss, I think he can do a bit more this season. And Matt Breida is there as well. Defense was 14th, 17th against the run, and 13th against the pass. Tre'Davious White, what more can I say? Unbelievable secondary. But their safety pairing as well. It's just incredible. As Tariq Thompson was telling us, Poyer and Hyde, how much he's been learning from them. I'm
looking forward to see what he has to do in that secondary this year, Zach. So,
and their linebackers too, Tremaine Edmonds, who went to the Pro Bowl last year, and Matt Milano too. All I want to see is, can they go one better than they did last year, make the Super Bowl? I think that Trubisky as well, he adds depth to that room. Something happens Allen for a few games, I think Trubisky can come in and do that. Yep. And also, on a finishing note, I'm looking forward to seeing our two British Bills, Obada and Christian Wade.
Most definitely,
shout out to those guys. I have them finishing first again with a record of 13-4. Ross,
exact same. We're reading off the same page.
Great minds
singing off
think
the
alike.
same hymn sheet tonight, Zach. That's it. That's a good shout. And just to follow up on that really quickly, Josh Allen is the type of guy that, even though I'm a 49ers fan, I want to get his jersey. That's just the kind of way I feel about how he plays and how he carries himself. Even I think he's gonna be a very successful quarterback. And I think he's the best from that draft class. But I think it's between him and Lamar, but I think he just tips it. Moving on to the Dolphins now. Another team that's highly up in the air going into 2021. Sorry. This is a team who I have a lot of hope for. So it is. I believe it can make the playoffs this season. But some things are going to have to work out for the best. They're in a similar situation to the Eagles, only they're a wee bit better. But he is in a similar situation because this offense is only going to go as far as he can take them. In 2020, they ranked 22nd overall. And you have to remember, as you mentioned earlier when you were speaking about the football team, the Washington football team, Fitzpatrick did a lot for them at quarterback. Really, he was kind of brought in when things started to look a bit dire for when Tua was in.
And to mentor Tua as well.
That can't be the situation this year.
Nope.
It's Tua or nothing, really. He has to lead them. He has to carry them. He has to put them on his shoulders, and he has to, mentor them. Now he is the leader in that situation. He's the guy in the huddle who the younger guys are going to be looking up to, the likes of Jalen Waddle, that new draft pick. But yes, as I mentioned, they have some more weapons like Jalen. They've also got Will Fuller from Houston. They've obviously still got Devontae Parker and Mike Gesicki out there at tight end.
I like him.
The world's their oyster in terms of targets, in terms of moving the ball. That shouldn't be an issue. The backfield's not as promising though. I don't feel like they actually know who's going to be taking reps as the starter this year at running back. You've got Miles Gaskin,
Yes,
Malcolm Brown, and Salvin Ahmed. At the moment, it's kind of leaning towards Gaskin, and that's who I would go for. But we'll see how things pan out. Things could change as the season progresses. Defensively, they rank 20th overall. Standout defensive players include Jerome Baker, Xavier Howard, who we mentioned earlier. And this is what I want to say. I was saying earlier, there's a chance he could be traded come the end of the season.
Yeah.
And this is because Miami have a tendency to trade their best players. Look what they did with Jarvis Landry. Look what they did with Fitzpatrick.
Jai a couple of years ago.
Yeah, that's right. And I think they sign him to a new deal now, yes. But I think come the end of the year, he will be traded. And this will be maybe to compensate for the rest of the team. Maybe they add new draft picks to be able to almost spread the love all over the place. But they have a very talented backfield, a very talented secondary. They've also got Byron Jones in there. The secondary was actually rated over 14th overall by PFF there at the end of season rankings.
Jason McCourtney's in from New England as well.
True, I forgot about him. Thanks for reminding me, Zach. Always filling in there. 18 interceptions in 2020 as well. So this is a team that I think will be successful this season. I think they go 10-7.
Okay.
What do you think?
I have concerns about Tua. I just don't know. I think that he really needed 2 years of mentoring.
Okay.
I think the fact that he didn't start as much as he did in his rookie season, and also the games where he did play, it didn't wow me. I mean, my Denver Broncos were able to beat the Dolphins, and that says a lot.
My 49ers weren't.
So Tua for me, he's just too hot, too cold.
True.
I have them 8 and 9, and also I think if Xavier Howard goes, I think that's going to have a big impact, and I think they're underestimating just how much of a unit he is to that defense. Going on to the New England Patriots, who finished third in that division with a 7-9 record. A different year in New England to most other years. It was a year where they missed out in the playoffs. They ended their 19-year season-winning streak, and it was the first time without Tom Brady since 2000, which is something that New England fans have to kind of get used to, and I'm sure they're still not really over it.
Yeah.
Their 11-year playoff appearance streak ended as well. There's a lot of records broken, and not good, not in a good way. 27th offense overall, 4th in rushing, and 30th in passing. Cam Newton was their quarterback, and to me, I do think that Cam has been beaten up quite a bit in his career, and I think his shoulder he's had a couple of torn rotator cuffs in his shoulder, and I think that's shown. Yes, he can throw a deep ball still, but I just have concerns there. Jacoby Meyers is pretty good for them at wide receiver, and he came out well. You have no Julian Edelman next year. He's retired now, and I think that's also going to have that Sean Lee impact on them. And it'll be also very interesting to see their new addition at quarterback. You've got Mac Jones.
That's it.
Very different quarterback.
Number 50.
Yeah. Very, very different to Cam Newton and playing styles. Yeah. And really, if you're going to start Mac Jones, you really have to have a different offense to fit around him. Yeah. Defensively, they finished 15th, 26th against the run, 8th against the pass. You have Devin McCourty there still. Stephon Gilmore, he's still kind of up in the air whether we'll see him or not. I don't know. There's contract dispute. But this is where I really like the Patriots. Bill Belichick saw that they finished 7th and 9th, and he went, I don't like this. And prior to this year, Belichick had a different style in free agency. That went out the window. I remember one evening I was, put my phone down, turned up. Oh, the Patriots have signed Johnny Smith. Okay, put it down again. Oh, they've signed Aguilar. They've signed Kendrick Bourne. Then they went and they got, Hunter Henry. They got Jalen Mills, Trent Brown's back.
All these
Cody
guys,
Davis is that cornerback. Yeah. And also Judon, who I think is going to be really good.
Yes.
But they also brought back Kyle Van Noy, who spent a year with the Dolphins.
Yeah, that's a good addition. That's a good addition.
He knows the Patriot way, so he's
Yeah.
going to fit in well with the defense.
It's almost like they sent him out as an agent, go and spy on these Dolphins and see what you can bring back to us in terms of information. That was definitely what Bill Belichick was doing. Don't try to tell me he wasn't.
We'll see. But also, here's another fact for you. The Patriots were the team most hurt by COVID opt-outs. And one guy who opted out last year is called Dante Hightower.
Yeah. Major loss.
Dante Hightower is a brilliant football player, and he's back this year. So that defense is going to be a lot better than previously. And I think that this has left Belichick with a really bad taste in his mouth. So he's not going to stick around and go for another 7-9 season. If he has to pull Cam Newton, he will. I think they're going to go 10-7.
Yeah. 10-7.
Yeah.
Wow. That's not what I was expecting, actually. After what you'd said there, I was kind of thinking it would be a lower score. But okay, I'm going to flip those numbers around.
Okay.
And I said 7-10. So what did? I think the Patriots, with Cam Newton as their quarterback and with an inexperienced rookie second string to him, Mac Jones, I don't think they can go too far this year.
Yeah.
The big question heading into 2020 was, is the loss of Brady enough to derail the Patriots, or will the wisdom of Bill Belichick still remain?
Yeah.
And we actually saw that it didn't remain. Bill Belichick didn't have as much of a handle on this team. And what I also saw was the lack of weapons that Cam had to throw to was much more obvious when it was Cam throwing to them and not Brady. Brady always seemed to make do with what he had to throw to. And I think the Patriots offensively will just not be good enough. Defensively, they will have a large, they will have a big kind of, they will be built up again with the likes of Dante Hightower coming back into the squad. And yeah, I think this season relies mainly on the defensive efforts of the Patriots. But we're now going to move on to the last team of the night, which is the Jets. Really, Zach, we could have designated a full podcast to this team only, because there's a lot to talk about here. But I'm going to keep it very short and sweet so I can let any of you who are actually still listening at this point to get on with your days. But the Jets, so they've drafted Zach Wilson, the first QB of the Robert Saleh.
The Robert Saleh.
Yeah, the Robert keepers here. It's all starting to go out the window. The Robert Saleh era has kicked off with Zach Wilson being picked. You already know my opinions on him.
I sure do.
Become clear as the as the episodes have gone on. Okay, he can play. I will give him that. I mean, he could throw the ball, he could move, albeit, having about a time to set up a campsite in the pocket. And I think, I wonder how many books he read back there. Like, the man just probably had time to just start. He could have even wrote his autobiography in that pocket, at Brigham Young. He had that much time, but he won't have that much time in the NFL. And I think this is going to be one of the major talking points of the season as it starts to progress. He's going to get sacked. He's going to get hit. He's going to get injured. I can see Zach Wilson getting injured this year, by the way.
Yep.
I think that maybe about 3 or 4 games in, that will be him out and done for the season, just like Joey Burrow. And when you take Zach Wilson, the fresh-faced fella of New York out of the equation, is there any more hope left for the season? I mean, this is what happens. We always talk a great deal about these teams, but anyone could get injured, and that just takes away all the promise that once lay there. And Elijah Moore, they've got that weapon. He's
looked good in training camp, to be fair to him.
Yeah, they've got Corey Davis, who's been added.
That's really good.
And a line they've added to that with Farrah Tucker. Still an underwhelming line, in my opinion. I mean, they do have Mekhi Becton and things in there, but they've also got Tevin Coleman in the backfield, which, me knowing from him from being on the 49ers, I don't think is a massive move. I don't even think he's a running back one, but if they see himself, then so be it. So offensively, it will depend on how good Zach Wilson can be this year, and on the merit that he stays healthy. I think that there could be some promising moments, but it will be a mostly dire performance. So don't hold your breath there. Defensively, then, for the Jets, in a word, I think that they were much better. They ranked 24th. Sorry, by the way, the Jets offense ranked the worst in the league this past year. So there was a wee bit more promise on the defensive side of the ball. They have a few good guys on that defense. They've got Marcus May. If he can stay there, if he isn't traded, then there's a lot of potential. CJ Mosley, another guy to keep your eye out for.
Yep, definitely.
Quinnen Williams out of Alabama. And I'm sure there's another one, but I'm missing them. But anyway, there's a lot of promising players on that defense. And once again, another team that will be relying on their defensive performance to allow their offensive unit to work effectively. But when it comes down to it, when it all boils down to that final game in January, I think it's now January with that addition of the 17th game, I think we'll be looking at a Jets team that comes out with a 5-12 record, and I think that's generous.
See, I'm going one less. I'm think 4-13.
Okay, well, at least you're on the same page.
I do think it's going to be a baptism of fire for Zach Wilson. He's been playing a certain style of football, and the NFL is a completely different ball game. Talk to any Alabama player who's gone up; it's still a step up. And from Brigham Young football, it's going to be the same thing. It's not all bad news for Jets fans. If you're a Jets fan, you're listening, don't be completely disheartened. There's a new culture in, you have Adam Gase is out. You have Robert Saleh, one of the most just up defensive coordinators in the league, took that 49ers defense to a Super Bowl caliber level.
He did,
and I think he's going to be really, really good for the team and the culture that he'll build. I just don't think it's going to be next season. And for that, I think the Jets will struggle.
Well, there you go. The final take has been given by Zach Humphrey, and that means it must come true. So
no, don't listen to him, people. Please don't.
So, thank you very much, first of all, for listening to this. If you have, well, I'm only talking to the ones who are listening now. So, for being here at this point, hats off to you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Because this segment alone has nearly taken an hour. But we do apologize for the fact that these podcasts always seem to be getting longer. But as we get more, more stuff to talk about, it is. And as the season progresses, that will probably be the case. And once again, a huge thanks to Todd Rosenberg, the NFL photographer who we had the pleasure of speaking to. And yeah, I think that's really it. Follow us on our Instagram account, on our Twitter. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't done so. Give it a like if you like the content of what we're speaking about today. Zach, any last words?
No, just thank you so much for your support, and we will see you at the next episode.
See you then.